Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Is Shona Robison out of her depth? Well, to be fair, she'd be out of her depth in a kindergarten. But I think the answer is definitely yes. But I and you are not the only ones who think so. Other people think so as well. And it appears that she only got the position she has because of her unswerving, undying loyalty to Humza Yousaf. She clearly is incapable of doing the job. She clearly has no talent, and it is showing. It is showing very badly. So we'll take a look at this article to see why Shona Robison is probably the worst person for the job. Here goes. So Shona Robison blasted as out of her depth as Finance Secretary amid a claim Humza Yousaf loyalty got her the role. Well, she clearly is incapable. She's barely numerate. And every time she opens her mouth, you realise she has no idea at all about what she's talking about. But he felt, confident enough in this woman's, and I'm going to use the word abilities, to make her, one of the most senior positions in any sort of government. And yet she's quite clearly someone who should be nowhere near power. Veteran Tory MP Moto Fraser was scathing in his criticism of the Scottish Government's Finance Secretary following her Holyrood performance last week. And there's a picture of her. She doesn't look the full shilling, does she? I mean, I think it's very good of him, all-inclusive in his cabinet. And to offer people who are quite obviously educationally subnormal positions like that. It's very generous of him, but it doesn't do the country any good. Shona Robison has been blasted as having little grasp of her brief as Finance Secretary by a veteran MSP who claimed her only qualification for the role was her loyalty to Humza Yousaf. Yes, she realised that she was never going to rise to the top on her own intelligence, charm, wit, humour or ability or talent or anything like that. So the only way she was going to rise was to be hitching herself to someone who was likely to bring her up. And that's what she did. She realised that she had a basically 50-50%, 50-50 chance, depending on whether she went with Humza Yousaf or Kate Forbes. And there are rumours, of course, that her and Kate Forbes absolutely loathe each other. But I can imagine that would be quite easy to do. I think Shona Robison is one of those who a lot of people would find it very easy to loathe. But where we're going. The prominent SNP politician is a long-standing member of the Scottish Government, having served under her close friend Nicola Sturgeon in a number of roles, including health and social justice. But when she was appointed to a key job as Finance Secretary, eyebrows were raised, even within the Nationalist group, due to her lack of real-world business experience. And you can take the words real-world and business out of that, just generally no experience of anything. She was one of those that has never had a proper job, Senior Tory MSP Moto Fraser, who has served as a shadow finance minister, claimed that she is not the right person for the role, especially due to the £1 billion budget black hole which Scotland faces. Oh, it's going to be way more than that. It is going to be horrendously way more than that. And on a side note, they're trying to bring in a tourist tax to fill those coffers. I think tourist taxes will, first of all, you either don't raise enough to make any real difference, or if you put the taxes up too much, you drive the tourists away and the whole of the economy suffers. Tourist tax is not really any kind of solution because, it just doesn't generate, at the low level that it operates at, it just doesn't generate anywhere near enough for your operating costs. It is, it's a bit of jam on your bread and butter, but it isn't the bread and butter. Anyway, Ms. Robison gave a robotic performance last Thursday as she talked about the £1 billion shortfall in the country's budget during 2024-2025, which is expected to reach nearly £2 billion by 27-28. I think you'll find it will be much bigger once certain things happen. And we're thinking here, DRS claims, if they go in, for example, there's going to be a lot of potential NHS court cases that need to be settled. You've got the legal fees for at least 3 different things that's going to likely to go to court and lose. I mean, there's going to be another million, for example, simply on the gender bill when you take that to the court, because you will lose. Scotland will lose that one. Or I say Scotland will lose that one. Scotland will win that one, but at the cost of the SNP will lose. But they'll lumber Scotland with at least £1 million legal bill. So I mean, it's left, right, and centre. These people are just costing Scotland money with every time that those jaws do that. Mr. Fraser attacked the Dundee East MSP for being totally unsuited for the finance role amid a pivotal time for Scotland. He said Robison has no background, professionally or politically, in business and finance, but she shares something with the First Minister in that they are both failed former health secretaries. Indeed, her only qualification for her latest job appears to be her loyalty to Yousaf and her role in delivering him the SNP leadership, rather than any ability to perform. Oh, she's got no ability whatsoever. She's another one of those the dross rises to the top. It's absolutely useless. And it's quite clear when you look at her, when you see, she's asked a question and she's off like that, because she's got no ability to think on her feet. She doesn't know her brief. She doesn't know the answers to the questions, and so she deflects. She tries to answer a different question. She prevaricates. She attacks the questioner. She'll answer a completely different question. She will not answer the question you asked because she hasn't got a clue. So this was startlingly obvious, he continued. This was startlingly obvious last week in the Scottish Parliament when she delivered the Scottish Government's medium-term financial strategy, setting out expected revenues and spending over the next 4 years. Asked a succession of straightforward questions, she had all the spontaneity of a brick wall. She resorted to reading lengthy, pre-prepared statements from her crib sheet, failing to respond to the legitimate points being raised by opposition MSPs. This was a minister with a white-knuckled grasp of her advisor's notes, but little grasp of her brief, and no grasp of reality. Mr. Fraser even described how he was nostalgic for the times disgraced Derek Mackay was Finance Secretary, or Kate Forbes, because at least they were both in command of their brief. There's Derek Mackay. Not that he was any good either, but he tended to be on board with it. Mr. Yousaf's choice of cabinet was criticised as he picked some of the most loyal allies, despite them being failures in previous roles. Are you kidding me? It's made up of failures. You have to be a failure to get into the SNP. No one who's ever been a success may be allowed to join. And the reason being is, if you have someone who comes into the SNP and he's good, intelligent, quick learner, someone who can respond, to think on his feet, has had a bit of experience in business, things like that, the leadership are dead scared of that person, because that person will rise to the top, will command a party, could lead that party to success, and would show them up for being the complete failures they are. And so therefore they can only ever take on thick, stupid people with no experience and no abilities, because it makes them look higher than they are. And this is the sad reflection of how the SNP picks its members. However, he also sidelined some of the more capable and experienced SNP politicians, including Keith Brown, Ivan McKee and Miss Forbes, the latter two rejecting their demotions. And you can't say you blame them. And that's another, and I've said it before, it's one of the stupidest things in politics you've ever seen, is when Humza Yousaf basically did not give Kate Forbes a senior position. He basically rent the party in two at that point. A real politician, someone with political nous, would have known better. But he doesn't know better, does he? Doesn't know his left foot from his right. Mr. Fraser concluded with a damning assessment of Miss Robison's performance so far. He said, bereft of ideas, Robison was plaintively asking opposition parties for their ideas on how to fill the funding gap that she and her party have created. A graphic example of being in office but not in power. It is the political equivalent of the arsonist pleading with a forlorn dressing gown clad householder standing on the pavement watching the flames rip through their home to don firefighting equipment and put out the fire. The problem we are in today's is one entirely of the Scottish Government's own making. Loyalty to Yousaf may get you a job, but it doesn't mean you can do it. And Shona Robison is not the only one in that cabinet who is incapable of doing the job, but yet has, because of her unswerving, or his unswerving, depending on who it is, loyalty, been given a senior post that they are quite incapable of filling. But then, as I say, when you are lacking any kind of talent or intelligence, it's not surprising. And there you are, a pair of idiots. Only they're a pair of idiots with their hands on the levers of power. Isn't it sad? Anyway, coming up. I think if you ask most people, they would give their genuine opinion that Shona Robison is not the right person in that role and that she's not capable of doing it. And when I say most people, I mean people even including those who are SNP voters. Probably even those inside the SNP government probably think that she's not suited to the role. And it is a step up too far for a woman of very limited means, in terms of mental ability, mental acuity, foresight, the ability to count. I mean, because I'm pretty sure she's enumerate. But somehow, because of this loyalty that she's shown, she's sort of stepped into it. It's not right. I mean, we really need to have IQ tests and intelligence tests for anyone given any kind of public responsibility. I think there needs to be a minimum educational level below which you may not serve. It's as simple as that. We cannot allow morons and idiots to rule us, anywhere. They don't just mean, the SNP government, or here. I mean everywhere in the world. No one in the world should be allowed to wield any kind of power or authority without intelligence. And I don't just mean anything qualified. I mean, they've got to sit an absolute intelligence test and show that they've had real world experience. Because if you're walking out from your, PPE degree at Oxford, go straight into a little policy wonk job within a party, scrape yourself into, an MP sitting there, straight up, all the way cabinet, all the way up, until eventually you become the Prime Minister, and you've never done a hand's turn in your life, Tony Blair, I'm looking at you. It's like that. You've just got nothing. These people have got nothing behind them. Anyway, there's an example of someone with nothing behind her. I shall round off there. Thank you very much for listening. If you like what you see and hear on the channel, please hit that subscribe button, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, don't vote for morons, for God's sake, and goodbye.